Thank you very much for staying with us on SABC News. Neighbouring Zimbabwe continues to face a myriad of challenges, both political and economic. On Friday, opposition forces had planned street protests across the country, but their efforts were thwarted by security forces. A number of activists have been arrested in connection with the protests. Others have been calling for the release of investigative journalist Hopewell Chin'ono, who was arrested and taken from his home in Harare on the 20th of July 2020. Let's get more details now. We're joined via Skype by Simba Chikanza, who is the founder and editor of and director of ZimEye. He joins us now from the UK. A warm welcome to you, and thank you so very much for agreeing to speak to us here on SABC News, sir.
Thank you, and a good afternoon to you.
Well, as a start, is it plain enough to say that indeed the Zimbabwean government is clamping down on the press? I mean, I'm seeing some reports where they're sort of justifying their actions and saying that, some journalists are really in sort of cahoots with some forces that are wanting to stage some sort of coup. And really, this is something we've heard quite a lot from Zimbabwe, even in the past administration. And then, we hear reports from them, from their own state papers, saying that the China and the US are actively backing a change in government, which would be quite bizarre, really, isn't it? Because China and the US don't necessarily get along during Trump's era. What's your make of all of this that's unraveling in Zimbabwe?
Well, there is truly a clampdown against the media, but it is not just a clampdown against journalists. It is beyond. We are seeing a repeat of incidents that have been running for over 37 years from the 4th of May, 1983, when Emerson Mnangagwa, the man who right now is boasting and titling himself president, announced that anyone who expresses opposing views should be killed, should literally be annihilated using DDT. He called them cockroaches. This is a repeat of events that have been running for nearly 40 years to date. I want to quickly say here, the media is truly in trouble. We are in trouble. And the physical attacks against the media right now, the jailing of journalists such as Hopewell Chin'ono, is just a physical manifestation of what has already been there. So far, in the last 2 years, journalists have been forced to call Emerson Mnangagwa president. Someone who they clearly know rigged the election. Someone who was on state television presiding over an announcement that the military would be used to change election results. And crimes would be committed in our country. And the physical torture, the arrests, the humiliation is just a physical manifestation. The real torture here is mental, where you're being told you must call someone who is clearly a criminal, who you know clearly is a criminal, call him a president, call them a politician, when you know that they are behind rapings, they're behind killings of many people. So this is a really difficult time for us as media in Zimbabwe.
I still really want to talk about that point I made, the fact that, the government of Zimbabwe is claiming and making really sort of claims that are really outlandish in terms of saying that that China and the US are actively involved in wanting to change the government in Zimbabwe. Where would they get these kinds of reports? Why would they make this up? Where do they get all of this from? Is it just a paranoia on the side of President Mnangagwa? Where does all of this stem from?
I think that is a traditional thing of always blaming foreigners for something that is clearly local, something that is clearly individualistic. And I remember last year in January, when over 17 people were killed and more than 50 women were raped, the United States was blamed for sponsoring the expressions of discontent, of disaffection with the fuel price hike. And I can only say here, these are mere excuses to commit crime. I think the time has come for journalists to call criminals what they are, criminals. Don't call them politicians. And if there's anything here that Mnangagwa should arrest people like Hopewell Chin'ono for is for honoring him as a president when he's clearly a criminal and a murderer. So this is what it is. These are just decoys.
Yeah.
Politicians using excuses, blaming them on foreigners.
Now, we're in the situation now where Hopewell Chin'ono is facing charges that could carry up to 10 years in prison. And I mean, from my own side, as you know, he's a former colleague of mine, and I'm sure someone you know relatively well. Those of us in the media space who can perhaps have that voice, what should we be doing at this point? Because really, I'll tell you from my point, I'm really feeling helpless about the situation. The guy is there. He was abducted from his house. We saw those visuals of his house really being broken into, and we're all kind of having to just sort of talk about it, but really actively what can be done to get this man out of this really insane situation?
I think here, media around the world, locally and around the world here, should get serious with something that is clearly a crime. We need to call this, what is going on here in our country, in Zimbabwe, a crime. And we need to call people like Emmerson Mnangagwa who he is, a criminal, and get really, really firm about it. If every journalist around the world could start calling Emmerson Mnangagwa a criminal, I believe we would get things done in a very short time. And these abuses, which are really, really gross and of a genocidal nature, would stop. That is what I think here is the best method, especially for us journalists, to address the crisis.
The Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights is saying that it is concerned that authorities in Zimbabwe are maybe using COVID-19 pandemic as a pretext to clamp down on citizens' freedom. Could they really take it that far? Could they indeed use a pandemic to kind of cut people's rights and continue in the way that they've been carrying with media freedom and stopping journalists from reporting as they should? Has this pandemic indeed been a sort of tool used for them to carry on this what they want to do?
It is no surprise. The pandemic is just one of those excuses. There have been many other excuses that have been used. In 1983, over 6 foreign tourists, were kidnapped, and Joshua Nkomo and his political party were blamed for those kidnaps. Things like that have been repeated, and they spent over 4 years, the military spent 4 years searching for a fake dissident they called Richard Gwesela, who we found out recently. I mean, I've personally interacted with the Gwesela family, and we've been told here there's no one like that, no one at all like that. So we're coming here to a point here where we must get really, really serious about the truth here. The truth is, these are just excuses. Excuses that I'm sorry, I'm standing up here because it is really getting that intense. These are excuses that keep on being repeated.
All right, and in terms of the presidency currently, when the late former president Robert Mugabe was sort of ousted, there were, I suppose, hopes in Zimbabwe for change, and but then on the other side there were those who were a little bit less optimistic, who were saying, well, at the end of the day, Mnangagwa, was a protege really trained by Mugabe. Should people sort of forget about there being any kind of change or the situation in Zimbabwe being better? I mean, even now, I just spoke to the WFP about the fact that there might be acute food hunger in the country, in Zimbabwe. I mean, these are issues that were dealt with under Mugabe's administration. So should people just kind of in Zimbabwe realize or perhaps think that there'll never be any sort of change under this current administration?
There will definitely never be change in Zimbabwe, and that is a fact, until the issues of the 1 August brutalities are dealt with here. 1 August was a crime. 1 August 2018, when over 6 people were killed, and there were other atrocities committed around Harare and other parts of the country. There will never be change, and it will definitely get worse. We will have starvation. Right now, people are already suffering under a lockdown And rightly so. And I think here we should thank the United Nations for being truthful and being honest in and concerning the plight of Zimbabweans. So that's what I can say here, that there would definitely never be change. On what you just touched there, did you mention a coup? Did I hear you right there? I'm not sure, the line was a bit unclear.
No. What I did say was that the Zimbabwean government had made the assertion that there is some kind of plans to overthrow this particular government, and I'd asked if they are justified in their thoughts, in their thought process. But I think you did adequately touch on that question. So we thank you very much, sir, for giving us your time from the UK. Simba Chikanza. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all the coverage. And let's hope that we journalists will do the right thing and call criminals what they are, criminals.
All right, sir. Thank you so much. That's Simba Chikanza, a editor of and a founding editor, of course, of Zim Online, a publication there, Simba Chikanza.